how do I say? So I don't like it when bad people use crypto, but like for example, everyone's mad at Russia right now. So banks and all that have seized transactions through Russia, so they started using Bitcoin. I like to see that no one can stop the transactions, but I will say I don't like it when people with bad intentions use crypto.
Well,
But
okay, so let me clarify what the penalties and misdemeanors kind of mean. I mean, again, I don't know all the criteria, but it's really just about uptime and trying to spoof the network or like trying to fake some block content and stuff. That's really all it's about. Like other intentions outside of that, this is completely disregarded, obviously. It's really just about the health of the network itself.
right, I was just curious if any of the validators uh, could seize any transactions, like stop someone from using the network or from sending crypto somewhere.
Well, technically, of course, yes, but that would incur penalties immediately. So if they invalidate a certain transaction for whatever reason, or they stop their node because they don't like some of the blocks or whatever, those are going to incur penalties or misdemeanors, and that'll jeopardize their stakes.
Okay, so let's. I get nervous asking these questions because it sounds like I'm trying to shame the project, which I'm really not. I love Richard Hart. I love his projects, and from what I just learned here now, uh, it with the whole penalties thing, like I'm like, oh wow, that's really cool. I'm really glad this project does that, and it honestly and trust it gives me more of a trust towards it because I didn't know about the whole penalty thing. Like that's really cool. Uh, so let's say there was a group of people using the Pulse network that a lot of people didn't like, and the validator group was approving these transactions. There's like no way the devs or Richard could shut that down or anything.
No, there's no way to shut it down. The only way to like, I guess, circumvent it is by other validators becoming more popular through whatever means and
And then all
making
and
the
then all the
like basically
delegators
healthy
leaving.
competition among validators. Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's really cool. This project is incredible.
I mean, it's not like a new invention, right? Proof of stake or delegated proof of stake is existed before. It's just probably Pulsechain is one of the more, I would say, realistic approaches to it. Plus, it's forking Ethereum with system state, so that's unique.
So I know we're not allowed to talk about other projects, but if I could ask, what were the first proof of stake delegators, just out of curiosity? If you can't answer that, it's fine.
I don't think I can. Like, there have been other chains, like non-Ethereum based chains that have or are doing proof of stake, proof of delegated stake, I think. Delegated proof of stake, sorry. I guess, yeah, I mean, we've talked about Cardano here before, so I think it's okay to say it, but you know, it's its own infrastructure ecosystem completely outside of Ethereum, so relatively small.
Okay.
There is, trying to remember the name. There's like a history or evolution of proof of stake, some kind of article somewhere. You can read a bit more about that from a technological standpoint or just across chains. Because I like to look across chains because it's good that there have been other chains that have done it, because if we were the first ones to do it, it's a wild experiment that could fail or go into a bunch of bumps. So it's good to have a bit of history in there.
So validators and delegators is what performs the transactions. So is it like the delegators, their pulse is used to perform transactions?
I guess their pulse is used to cover their costs because being a validator can be expensive.
So it's at a cost of the validators, not the delegators.
Everything is always at the cost of the validators, but give me one sec. I got about 2 minutes and then I got to jump into a call, but everything is at the cost of validators, but they're obviously incentivized to run these nodes. And somebody else will have to step in now to continue because I gotta go. But they're incentivized by receiving fees / stake pulse. But I gotta go now.
Yes, thank you so much. Goodbye.
My understanding is that staked pulse does not count as a cost. It's simply used as, think of it as collateral of sorts. Your ability to stay in the top 33 depends on how much pulse you have in your wallet as a validator. If you have less, or if you have strikes against you for being a bad validator, then you lose your position. If people take their pulse out, their votes out, because after all, your pulse never leaves your wallet, it gets locked and delegated. The validator doesn't have it to spend, so that's why you don't get slashed. You just simply don't get gains. But a
Okay.
validator can actually lose. They have to cover that loss, that slashing, if they are a bad boy.
Okay. And how are the slashes determined? Is there like a voting system? Do the devs decide, or is it an automatic thing?
It's all automatic. That's why Richard is dealing with it right now as part of the stuff that has to be fine-tuned so that it all works automatically. The slashes are delved out. The validators that are bad actors that either go offline and don't care to participate because they're offline because they haven't maintained their infrastructure properly, those have to get penalties. And by penalties, it's like you weren't there when we needed you. Therefore, you're knocked out of the top 33. So you don't get the ability, even though you have enough pulse to vote yourself back in at a later date, you can't be in that current 33 validator squad, so to speak, because you just aren't paying attention.
That's cool. That's good to hear. Makes me like this project more and more.
Oh, that call was a dud. Where were we? We're talking about the incentive for validators, right? I don't know if anyone else jumped in, but the way
Yeah,
it works in Pulse
Papa,
is
Papa
70%
answered everything pretty much.
goes to the validator, and I think 25% of a transaction fee is burned. That's pretty much it. It's
So
basically just like Ethereum and with gas fees paying the miners. 75% of the transaction fee goes to validators.
oh, okay. So that's how. Okay, so the validators are paid in transactions. Is there any other way that they're paid besides transactions?
Nope. Well, they
How
could probably do donation schemes and whatever on the side, but I already see some of the validators that are on testnet that are somewhat known members of the community or communities within the community, and they have their own sites and stuff, and they can run donation schemes. But yeah, from the chain itself, it's just transaction fees.
and are the
And I think
delegators paid in transaction fees as well? Did you catch that one? Did I cut out?
I don't remember. I'm not actually sure what delegators get. I think I did it once on testnet. I have to double check. I would think there would be an incentive, but I would be talking out of my ass if I pretend to know what it is at the moment.
Right. I checked testnet a couple days ago. It allows you to do swaps and stuff, but it won't let me like stake my PulseX or Pulsechain anymore unless I'm wrong and just doing something incorrect.
Right, yeah, you get rewarded for staking, obviously. I just don't actually know how exactly the reward scheme works, like the percentages and stuff. So if anyone else knows more details on that.
I think it's and I don't know for sure either, but I think depending on how much interest rate you get is depending on how much you have delegated. So the more pulse you have delegated, the more interest rate you're going to receive. If anybody can correct me, please do.
I'm reading. So the only stakers with at least 0.01% share of the validator stake are eligible for rewards. So if you stake anything less than that, you get nothing. Or maybe you cannot stake. I'm not entirely sure.
What's
The validator node, they can set the revenue share, I believe. So actually, if you go on, I don't know if you have testnet enabled or you can be bothered, but if you go on stake.v2b.testnet.pulseradioapp.com, you can already do all this stuff there, right? You can do staking to validators, and some of the validators will have a revenue share percentage, right? And each validator can put whatever percentage they want there, right? If you're crazy, you can do revenue share 100, but so I guess it'll be interesting to see which ones are high performing versus low performing. If it's the ones with the highest revenue share or lowest or whatever.
Yeah, I was on the testnet site a couple days ago. It wouldn't let me. It would only let me yield farm and do swaps. I couldn't do any staking.
That's PulseX. You were on PulseX, but if you go to the stake.testnet.pulsechain.com with V2B in it, obviously, and then /validators, there definitely is the list of all the validators, and you can stake to them or delegate your stake. As long as it's above 0.01%, you'll get rewarded for whatever percentage this particular validator has allocated.
Oh, well, if that's the case, I'm going to grab my hardware wallets and try to play with that now. It'll be a minute, though, because my hardware wallets are in a vault 3 miles underground. I'm totally.
So to be a validator, not that it's interesting to you personally, but you need, I think, around 500,000 PLS as a non-refundable deposit. There's a bit of a barrier. It's not that much though. For now.
It will be a lot in a handful of years. It better be, at least.
There's an example. That's cool. If a validator has 50% revenue share and 2 stakers exist within it only, with like 2 and 3 PLS delegated, then the stakers will receive 20 and 30% of the validator's rewards, respectively. The remaining 50% will go directly to the validator. So if they put 50, then the validator gets 50, and the rest gets equally distributed among the delegators. So it's interesting because I think the validators that optimize their costs, or maybe even, you know, maybe sacrifice for the greater good and give a better revenue share, then obviously people are more incentivized to use them over others. But we'll see how that whole game theory will play out.
Okay, so is there 2 different testnet websites? One's for PulseX, one's for Pulsechain?
Pretty much.
Okay, I did not know that. So is it v2b.testnet Pulsechain?
If you type !testnet in Telegram chat, I think it'll give you all the deets you need. Yeah, exactly. So if you go, I think the one that you're looking for is test delegating your stake. Yeah. Probably what you were looking at was the PulseX V2B interface. And in order to do anything on the validator list, you probably want to use the faucet first to get some free TPLS already, just to cover transaction fees and stuff.
Toby, are you still there? I wouldn't need to get the pulsed faucet if I sacrificed, right? I already have my test pulse in there, correct?
If you have it.
Yeah, it's showing up like the exact amount that I would get for sacrificing.
Then you don't need it.
Yeah, I have sacrificed for both chain and X.
Nope.
Right when the PulseX Sacrifice came about, a couple weeks before that, I got a huge settlement. I got hurt at this construction company, and I reported the injury and they didn't do anything. And they just kept like ignoring my, injury report. And it got so bad to the point where I had to quit. And then I found out I had to get a lawyer, and I got a lawyer, and I got a pretty decent settlement out of that. And I pretty much just sacrificed it all for PulseX.
Good news covered in bad news.
Yeah, and fun fact, I'm actually on workman's comp right now. That injury was like 2-3 years ago. It was back in 2020. So yeah, 2 years ago. And I got hurt again in May for a different company, but they didn't fight it. They took me in to get looked at, and I got drug tested and all that good stuff. So I'm on workman's comp now, and everything's getting paid for, and I get a weekly paycheck, but it's nothing. I'd make a lot more if I was still working, and I kind of wish I was, so I could prepare for when this project launches, because I would like to get as much PHEX as I can while it's still cheap, because I feel like it's going to skyrocket immediately when it's available to purchase.
Well, hopefully you'll see a speedy recovery and a speedy launch of Pulse. I'm not so sure about the second one.
It can take its time for me. I want to save up as much money as possible to have more to invest when it launches. Honestly, though, I hope it launches right when I don't think we've hit the bottom of the market yet. I don't know for sure though. I don't think we have hit the bottom, but I hope it launches right when Richard Hart thinks we hit the bottom, so we can ride this small little bull run we'll get.
Well, here's my 2 cents for what it's worth. I think the bear market will last longer. Obviously, I don't know if it will bottom further and whatever. I don't care. And I genuinely don't think that he's trying to time it. Some other people might, but I don't personally think that's actually the case. It'll be convenient. And my second point is I do believe that at least for a brief period of time, it'll dump to below sacrifice prices. I mean, those will differ based on who you are and how much you sacked and so on, but overall, it will be around the same. Because apparently people aren't that patient, even though they've been told to not expect anything and blah blah blah. But clearly everyone is expecting something and want everything now, and when launch, blah blah blah. So those people, in my mind, they're gonna dump the moment it reaches anything near their SEC price. So I don't see a scenario where it won't at least temporarily for a couple of days, weeks, months, dip below the SEC price. I can be wrong, but that's my 2 cents. So since it's been a while, Spiffy, if you're still here, I read up again on the penalty system because I was under the assumption that there's multiple categories that flow into that, but it looks like the only things that matter are uptime, responsiveness, or just generally the ability to produce a block. That's basically the only thing that'll count towards misdemeanors or even felonies. Felonies. Basically, if you have a certain amount of slashes or whatever it's called, you'll get a misdemeanor. If after a certain amount of higher amount of slashes, like I think 150 or so, you'll get a felony. that'll actually be a trigger for having the validator removed actively, automatically.
Yeah, I'm looking at it all right now. I'm just trying to figure out how you would determine what the best validator to join would be to get the most rewards as a delegator. Like, so there's revenue
Yeah,
share.
it's a mix of looking at the revenue share, their past misdemeanor and felony counts. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And maybe the amount of other delegators and the stakes, so that you know, I guess, how popular it is, or if it does matter. Those are basically only 3 metrics that you can look at. I'm not even sure if you can see how many delegators. I think you can see the total amount delegated, but not the amount.
What is in rotation?
I think in rotation just means online, like any validator that is actually producing blocks, but I could be wrong. Because you can register a validator but not have produced any blocks yet. So I think you'll show up there, but having no blocks produced means you've never been in rotation. I think. I'm figuring this out as much as you do, given the information that we have here.
Does them having their total stake, does that affect anything about how much of a revenue share I'll get?
No, it's determined by the validator themselves. So you can write there whatever, 69, 50, 100. It's totally up to the validator. Okay, here it is on rotations. Validator rotation occurs every 28,800 blocks, which is around about 1 day, 24 hours. There's a maximum of 33 validators in each rotation at any given time. So if there's more than 33 validators, it'll be like down to the top 100 list or whatever, the top 33 that'll make it into each rotation at any given point. It looks like each day is basically reckoning day for every validator to see how they performed and whether or not they will make it into the next rotation. This seems to me like what will be the daily business for them. I don't know about these numbers, like if the 33 is a good number, how it was come up with. It's like, why 33? Why not 13 or 300? I just don't know what's a good number of validators to expect. But maybe they were looking at Ethereum and number of miners. I don't know. it always seems to me that any project with a fixed a fixed static value for, eternity may run into issues at some point, because what if the network scales so hard that it becomes so popular that 33 just isn't a good number anymore? Just like maybe with Hex, the 3.69% may not be forever be the best inflation number either, but I don't know. For now, it's perfectly fine. I kind of just feel like, coming from a analytics data background, that some of these things should be a bit more dynamic, so that over the long term, this value can change based on, the adoption, sort of. If that makes any sense.
All right. I just staked some test pulse.
Yep. Let it sit there for a while, at least 24 hours or multiple cycles, and then see what's your which validator did you pick, or what's the revenue share?
I picked delayed gratification. Revenue share is 100, 0 misdemeanors, 0 felonies. Total rewards earned 117 pulse. It's the most I've seen so far. I was going to join Mr. King Sacrificer himself, David Fetter, but he requires about it's a minimum of like I think what was it? I gotta find it.
0.01% of the total stake, which is a lot.
It won't show me now. I needed like 22 million, I think, which that would have been that would mean I would have had to have sacrificed about $2,200 something on the day one for the 1-10,000 ratio, which I would have. I just didn't have the money at the time until I got that big settlement, which that was during the PulseX sacrifice. So that's why I'm getting way more PulseX than I am Pulsechain.
Oh, that's pretty neat, actually, because we were just talking about it, right? What are some of the metrics to decide where to delegate to? But I forgot about this part, right? You have the minimum 0.01% stake amount, and if one of the validators is just so damn large, it'll disincentivize or just make it impossible for some number of people to keep delegating to that stake to that validator, which prevents a bit of that centralization that could occur. right? You'll just have to look at second, third, fourth, etc. validators to delegate to. Because if for whatever reason everybody delegates to just one validator, that's bad news.
Right. I can see why it's good to have a good amount of validators. So far on the test network, it says there's 512.
Yeah, and only the top 33 would make it in at any given point, so it'll be interesting. Although keep in mind that the testnet just I don't think it's not realistic. I think it'll be a lot less. It'll be maybe 50 and then grow over time. Because a lot of people are just randomly created validators just for the sake of creating them.
I got a kind of a noob question to ask you. You think Pulse chain will ever reach the value of $1?
Not in a long time, I think.
What, you think like 10 years?
5, 6, maybe. I don't know.
That's nothing. 5, 6 years, that's nothing.
Yeah, to take 10, I don't know. But I'm just looking at the insane supply. Well, it depends on, I would say it sort of depends on the amount of transactions happening on it. Because the more transactions, the more the more it will get burned. It's 25% of every transaction fee gets burned. So it's deflationary over time. It's just I don't know what the rate of, did I say inflation or deflation? It's deflationary over time. So I don't know if what the rate will be. We will see. I mean, let's take a look at Ethereum, right? Since the London fork, I think it was 1559 or whatever it was called, EIP 1559, where they introduced fee burning. I think about 2 million or more Ethereum has been burned, which is quite a lot. It hasn't exactly driven Ethereum price up since then, but it should over the long term. One is interested in having basically the same view as on the Pulsechain stake front end, but for the Ethereum 2.0 future merge thing, whatever. There's beaconchain.in, so beacon chain, but the last in is separated by a dot. You can kind of see the same thing, like the amount of active validators and the amount of staked Ethereum. Quite interesting because on Ethereum, of course, they have a shit ton of users. There's 405,000 active validators.
I cannot see how anybody still thinks Ethereum is a good project anymore.
I still do. I mean, there's going to be better, like Pulsechain, but it it doesn't invalidate Ethereum's existence. Like it's still the best thing out there, honestly. Doesn't mean it doesn't have its issues. That's never the case. Like there's no such thing as being number one in anything and saying, well, this is great. We can just stop right here. Always need to improve. And they're working on it. It's just taking a long time, man.
They're taking their time on purpose.
Nah, it's hard, man. It's a lot of moving parts that you need to bring together and fix and figure out. Like it's definitely easier to just start over, sort of like Pulsechain is trying to do. Although the hard part there will be getting the adoption. But you know, you got to pick your battles. Do you want to struggle for marketing and get users onboarded, or do you want to struggle with moving the giant ship that is Ethereum, convincing miners to fuck themselves?
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. I mean, I'm no dentist, so
Neither am I, but I recognize the difficulty of what Ethereum is trying to do. Um, I also recognize what Vitalik actually cares about is not so bad. Like he's trying to improve, but he's fighting battles with monsters. There's a good amount of people in Ethereum who don't give a fuck about Ethereum. You know, they give a shit about making big bucks off it. That's good in the short term, but it's not necessarily the best in the best interest of the chain in the long term. And it's also good to look at Ethereum every now and then because everyone who's complaining coming in here every day, like when launches. Well, when was ETH 2.0 supposed to be launched? Well, let's take a look here. 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. I could go on. Not saying that's the
Remember,
destiny for Pulsechain.
sorry to cut you off, Toby. I was wondering, do you recall from the upgrade of the beacon chain, the beacon fork or the beacon upgrade? I believe that was 2020. Can you recall the timeline that they had?
The roadmap or no, not really. I think it
believe that.
was 2021, no?
I believe Q4 2020, but I could be mistaken.
Yeah, Q4 2020 or Q1 2022. Q4 2020 or Q1 2020. Oh my God, I can't even get it right. 2021. But I don't remember. I mean, there's been so many dates given or potential stage releases, etc. But it's just it never works out, and this is the thing. Like anyone who doesn't understand that part will constantly be questioning the validity of Pulse chain development. But if you really look at history and really look into how Ethereum has been developing, and it's been doing great, it's just it's taking time, man. It's constantly riddled with delays. I do believe they will make it. Just nobody knows when.
Yeah, they keep on pushing it back like 6 months, another 6 months.
Yep. Well, I do think that in August, the difficulty bomb will actually go into effect, and that'll be an interesting moment for me personally.
Would you say that the miners have an incentive to do another fork from the POS upgrade?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. I think that's very possible, and it'll be a very interesting political debate to watch if that happens. I'd rather think that it's gonna have more delays. Like in August they'll say September, in September they'll say October, and so forth. I think Tim Bako, the core dev, once said that there's a 1 to 10% chance that the merge will not be executed in 2022. That leads me to believe that it's not going to happen this year, because when they say there's a 10% chance, in reality that means it's probably more than a 50% chance. And another thing that I heard, but this is all just rumor shit, about Ethereum was that they had dealt with developer burnout, which is a real thing, or a problem. Not sure if Pulsechain experiences similar stuff, but I know from personal experience that it does happen when things get hectic and a lot of work piles up. It can be daunting as a developer, or especially if you have a small team, you're not like the most performing bunch. It's a delicate balance in development to have enough pressure to have like a sense of urgency to get things done, but if there's too much pressure, it can really cause team burnout. I've experienced it firsthand. So I know these are all things people don't give a shit about, but those are real things that are occurring. I would even go as far as saying that one of the reasons they do these delay pushes by like month by month, or even 2 week by 2 week, is to keep up the pressure on developers. No joke. Because if you say, well, it's just delay it by a year, there tends to be this like, let's lean back and chill out for a moment mentality.
Figure how much capital the foundation has, that we shouldn't have any issues hiring more developers.
Yeah, you would think that, and I would even tend to agree. It's just when you have a core dev team that, you know, works quite well, or they know the code and so on, it's not necessarily the number of developers that will solve this problem, right? If you have the guys and they know the issue, and the only thing that is standing in between it is a bit of time and their determination, or, you know, whatever it is it going to be fixed by just adding 5 developers onto it? Maybe, but what you don't take into account is the amount of effort, time, and investment it takes to onboard 5 new guys into the team and also onto the code. It can take anything from 3 to 6 months to onboard them properly, really understand it, get into it, you know, get to know the rest of the team. Like it's the reality is just so much more shitty than a lot of people imagine. Let's just throw money at the problem and that'll solve that. Like, yeah, money is easily 33% of the issue. There's a lot of other things at play that you don't understand. And I'm purely speaking from software development experience in Web 2 that I have. Like, I have no idea about blockchain whatsoever, how software development works there. But if it's anything like in Web 2, I think it's going to be riddled with similar problems.
Yeah, I guess EOS had about 4 billion in capital, and they couldn't. I don't know. That's pretty much going to zero.
I mean, Richard doesn't say all the other chains are filled with shitty developers for no reason, right? They're not. Is the amount doesn't apparently really solve it. It's the quality of them, and or the motivation, or whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of issues that go into it. But if you tell a dev like, look, it needs to be done in 2 weeks, and then they don't get it done, or they don't find the issue to a certain bug in 2 weeks, there's just fuck all you can do about it. And you can even tell them, look, I'll give you 150K more at the end of the year if you do. That doesn't solve the problem. That's not how that works. You don't just throw money at the problem and say, well, that'll get it done. It can help a little bit.
kind of see it like paying a top performing athlete. You're paying for them for the performance,
Say that again. You lagging out or something.
like top performing athletes. They have the highest net cap, right, of salary because what's the reason? Their performance and their abilities.
But I'd argue that if you give them 1 million more tomorrow and tell them run 5 meters longer or faster, they're not going to be able to do it because of that. That's my main point. Goes the other way around, right? They perform better, they'll end up getting better sponsorship, etc.
You know, if Richard had a conversation with Dan Larimer,
And I don't know.
I believe he was the creator of the POS system.
Hi guys, I've got a different question to what you're talking about, but I just wondered if anyone knew with HEXradio app. I paid the $10 like a year and a half ago. Just sort of forgot about it. When you pay the $10, do they give you the seed phrase that you need to activate it? Because it's saying enter seed phrase 24 words, but I'm pretty certain that I've never had that unless you get that upon setting it up, and therefore I didn't write it down. So what do I do then?
Wait, can you repeat the question? Are you talking about a hardware wallet now or something else?
Yeah, sorry, Staker wallet. I activated it with the $10 option. But then it's saying put in your 24 word seed, and I don't have a clue what that is. I don't know if I need to get sent
You
that
have
or if that's something I could have jotted down in the first instance.
hardware wallet? What kind of wallet do you have where you store most of your stuff cold?
Oh well, that's a totally different setup. That's sort of a mixture of the hardware stuff. Um, I'm using a dummy MetaMask, but my actual Staker wallet, I don't actually have anything staked or purchased through it. It's just I'm just wondering how to actually get it up and running because it says it enter your seed phrase, but I'm pretty certain I've never had that or jotted one down.
Yeah, which is why I'm asking. So if you have a hardware wallet, you obviously usually don't know your seed phrase, and therefore I don't think StakerApp works with hardware wallets. I could be wrong. I don't know so much about Staker. I mean, does it have its own wallet creation somehow in it, or how does it work? Because I think it's asking you for an existing one so that you can track it and maybe even stake with it and stuff. That's the way I understand StakerApp, but again, I'm very uninformed about Staker in general.
Yeah, I thought it had its own seeds and then it worked through sort of Gnosis or whatever. I don't know, to be honest. I've never liked the idea of having anything on my mobile for my staking, so I've never really looked at it. But the thing is, I think I'm getting a couple of referrals and whatnot, so I just want to see if there's, you know, what would be paid in. I guess you'd need the actual live wallet address to be paid into.
Yeah, I don't know. I think with Staker you can create your own recovery phrase, and it'll show you the 24 word, not 12. And those you obviously have to store or memorize yourself. Then you can use it, but I don't know about what else they can do. Like I just use it passively to monitor wallets without any seeds and shit.
Yeah, okay. It's no biggie because I haven't got anything in it, so I'm just going to keep it for monitoring. Is Staker? Does anyone know if Staker app is going to be what's going to be monitoring cross chain as well? So, like when Pulsechain launches, is it going to show multiple chains? Because I know at the moment, is it Zerion? Is showing multiple chains. It's pretty neat. There's a one UI to show all your chains on your addresses.
All I know is it should be pretty easy for them to do. And obviously, since they are members of the community, they'll be aware of Pulsechain. So I would be surprised if not. But I haven't heard anything of the sort, so.
Richard was asking about developers for a new wallet. I mean, I personally don't go into the developer chat, but does anyone know any progress on that?
I mean, Richard has been posting job ads in March for wallet development. I think it's a bit early. On that note, he's offering 180 to 250K a year salary for it. If you know Go or React.
Does anyone know how closely the sort of ETH 2.0 development is alongside the development progress of Pulsechain? Example, like the Rockstein bridge just had an upgrade the other day, right? So, I mean, is that sort of helping Pulsechain, or is that actually sort of throwing up more hurdles in that they've got to sort of work with the newest version of where ETH is in terms of the fork?
I'm not super familiar, but I'd imagine they'd have to have compatibility going forward from the fork. So let's say, I don't know, fork happens in August, whatever the state of Ethereum will be then, not the Ropsten, by the way, like the mainnet. They would have to match. But I don't think whatever happens on Ropsten at the moment matters that much, other than maybe for the bridge. I'd imagine it would be critical if ETH 2.0 for some reason or another does actually happen this year. Pulsechain didn't, that it would cause delays. But I have no idea. I'm just guessing.
I mean, like the I had some bits on XDAI, was it Gnosis chain from like 2 years ago, and then it was a lot cheaper to bring stuff back into Ethereum after the Ropsten upgrade the other day. So I'm just wondering. It's essentially like trying to put out a wildfire, isn't it? I guess because they're sort of building L1, and when they see these huge advancements happening, they're going to have to make sure that they're developing, you know, on the newest L1 system state, right?
Absolutely. Any EIP that gets forked in, I mean, does need to get looked at. It's just most of them aren't that complicated, aren't fundamentally breaking anything. Pulsechain, I believe, but that's the part where I'm completely incompetent to comment actually, because the specifics of each improvement obviously do matter.
I mean, essentially, Pulsechain isn't really a bridge; it's an L1 that's going to be working with the rest of the ecosystem out there, as many other systems are doing, L1 forks or not. I mean, that's the main goal, is to have everyone sort of connected, wherever they are and whatever L1 they're sitting on. So I'm guessing that the missing piece at the moment is things like ZK rollups and things like that, which I haven't read massively into, but just to be able to determine, rather than reading the entire blockchain, just, where it's looking, however the ZK rollups thing's working. Again, I haven't really read into it. I just understand that the Ethereum legacy blocks that have been forked sort of have to be all incorporated and scanned when looking at parts that have separated away from the L1, I guess. But again, I'm not an expert on this. Reading some of Vitalik stuff is pretty mind-boggling, and you have to interpret as much as you can.
9.1 million hex was bought about 2 hours ago.